صدام بن خليفة حفتر هو طبعا يعاني من عقد نفسية سابقة، من اضطهاد نفسي
تدرج في الرتب العسكرية بين ليلة وضحاها.
اتهامات مبطنة لصدام حفتر نجل قائد الجيش الليبي خليفة حفتر.
صدام قدم هدايا ثمينة ل50 من مشاهير تيك توك،
لكن مينسك لها قرارها ولوكاشينكو ماهوش رجل سهل.
الرجل يتعامل مع بين الرئيسيين، يتعامل مع الامريكان ومع الروس، القطبين الرئيسيين في العالم الان.
قامت رئاسة أركان القوات البرية
بتعليمات من الفريق صدام حفتر رئيس أركان القوات البرية
على قائد المعارضة النيجيرية
المدعو محمود صلاح.
يطلع صدام، يطلع حتى يعطيهم تدريب في الكلاب، ما عمري سمعت يتكلم صدام، على الأقل أعطوه دور يتكلم، يسمع، خليه يسمعوا الليبيين.
سيد صدام يتحدث يشتري، يفعل وما يتحدث.
Monte Carlo International, Saddam Haftar, Russia's patron on the coast. A magazine website. Saddam saw the Libyan failure and guards the interests of others. Africa Intelligence. Why is Saddam Haftar climbing the military ranks? Middle East newspaper. Implicit disregard for Saddam Haftar in oil smuggling. Nova Italia. Saddam Haftar strengthens relations with Belarus and relaunches military cooperation with Moscow. Daily Sabah. The United Nations accuses Saddam Haftar of oil smuggling. Reuters. A private oil company in Libya grows under the eastern leader, Saddam Haftar. Saddam Haftar, the favored general, youngest son of Field Marshal Haftar. They called him a man haunted by psychological scars. They saw his silence as weakness and accused him of climbing the military ladder through bloodline, not merit.
ونسعى إلى الإصلاح والتطوير الحاضر، لأننا ندرك تماما باعتبارنا رئاسة أركان القوات البرية قوة الجيش وكلمة السر في تحقيق النصر.
They painted him as a warlord, walking over skulls, accused of being out of touch, isolated in his military tower. They say Saddam cares little for politics and lacks a diplomatic finesse. To some, he's Russia's man. To others, AFRICOM coordinator. All this and more, you have heard and read it in the directed newspapers and channels. On platforms and pages of pens funded by agendas aimed at tarnishing the man's image. With every achievement or meeting and movement of the commander of the ground forces. His decisions provoke them. They doubt his intentions and scrutinize his history, searching for a slip-up to satisfy their suspicions. His sudden appearances plunge them into a maze of analyses, forcing them to twist the texts and pose questions, waiting for answers. Unaware that they are facing a rising military figure and a statesman refined by experience and shaped by the field. He does not appear on screens to clear himself of accusations, nor does he waste his time in empty disputes and conflicts. He knows that words are blown away by the wind and actions remain carved in memory. They ask him for explanations for a visit here or a military operation there, and he responds with more assured steps. They inquire about his stance and the reason for his presence at this or that meeting, and he answers with bold decisions. He does not hold press conferences, nor does he release justificatory statements, and you will not hear his voice in conferences of conspiracy or halls of outcry. But you will see the impact of his steps on the borders among warlords, in the arenas of battle or among the leaders of major nations and armies. He believes that work is not written with the ink of pens, but is recorded on the field, and that words, no matter how loud, remain frail before the realities of the earth. The August 2023. Brigadier Saddam Haftar, commander of the Ground Forces Operations Room, leads the largest military operation in the far southwest of the country. At that time, local and international media outlets broadcast shocking images and footage revealing a state run by gangs, drug traffickers and organized crime mafias in the Chinese buildings in the al-Aranib, Taragan and other areas. Colonies on the opposing Chadian border occupy parts of Libyan territory and openly set up their camps during the day. At that time, everyone stood powerless to confront them or even consider pursuing them. Cantons for human traffickers, kidnapping and ransom gangs disturb the inhabitants of the south and target their security and safety. Within a few weeks, through organized effort and diligent work, all those gangs and mafias fell one after another. The region stabilized, and the south began to reap the benefits of security and stability through reconstruction and development efforts. 2024 became the year of developing the south and pulling it out of the marginalization that had ensnared it for decades. The rising young leader who opened the doors to reconstruction and stability for the south did not abandon the hottest spot in Libya. The sequence of specialized operations by the ground forces units continued throughout the past year, chasing smugglers and drug traffickers across every inch of the region. This extended to the Kalinga Mountains, one of the largest strongholds of the Chadian opposition on Libyan territory, Esinan Dasoi Chitasori, which eventually retreated, dragging the tales of defeat back to its country after fierce battles with the ground forces. Coinciding with the border cleansing journey, everyone was surprised by an unconventional appearance of Brigadier Saddam Haftar, the Chief of Staff of the Ground Forces, in a sensitive timed official African tour to Chad, Burkina Faso, and Niger respectively in June, July, and August 2024. The tour was covered by Arab and international newspapers, from France's Le Monde to Middle East Eye, Jeune Afrique, and Italy's Nova. At that time, a stream of analyses and articles emerged, seeking answers to the mystery of the appearances, the timing of the visits, and what unfolded before and after them. However, the Chief of Staff of the Ground Forces responded with his usual silence, content with another step whose lines were written in the south and on the lands of Qatrun. The road toward border purification. Since the beginning of January 2025, we have closely followed the activities of the ground forces staff, their movements, and their daily programs. The results of the investigation showed an intensification of border patrols and military training alike. Field tours encompass the Libyan border triangle with Egypt, Chad, Niger, and Sudan. The latter, with its 382-kilometer border with Libya, has placed a significant humanitarian responsibility on the shoulders of the ground forces. They are tasked with protecting 500,000 Sudanese displaced persons. The staff headquarters has undertaken the responsibility of caring for and protecting them, securing their needs, and providing them with prefabricated homes. Additionally, they oversee the provision of health and psychological support and coordinate the management of their presence in cooperation with the Libyan government. Semi-daily specialized operations dismantle fuel smuggling gangs, drug traffickers, corruption dens, and criminal organizations. These operations coincide with regular meetings of the leadership and officers of the ground forces, attended by General Saddam Haftar. On February 7th, a meeting took place that included him and the Deputy Commander of the United States Africa Command, AFRICOM, General John Brennan, along with his accompanying delegation in Sirte. Alongside those meetings, operations and patrols, intensive training camps and fitness lessons continue day and night, under the direct supervision and follow-up of General Saddam Haftar, whose helicopter landed at dawn on February 9th for a visit to the Protectors of the Homeland factory located in Tokra.
رقمك
84 سيد.
كم سنة؟
3 سيد.
نوي؟
الكلية العسكرية.
نوي من أي منطقة؟
جنينة سيد.
جايين بيك إن شاء الله. توفيق.
General Saddam Haftar participated in the morning training and activities at the military academy, then joined the cadets for breakfast, listening to their requests and needs. He emphasized the importance of combining training commitment and academic excellence in preparing officers capable of performing their duties with efficiency and competence. He promised his fellow soldiers and the defenders of the nation that he would work on developing the academy and equipping it with the latest equipment and technologies to ensure the highest levels of military training and education. The visit seemed very routine, yet you might hear whispers doubting its sincerity, speaking coldly of the general's display of the military force he leads. But the shock came just a few days later. The special units of the ground forces launched a widespread military operation in the city of Qatrun in southern Libya. From the moment the operation was announced, paid pages and channels along with disinformation outlets began broadcasting fake news and information targeting the operation and its leader. Sometimes they talk about defections and coups within the ground forces, and other times they present theories about conflicting interests. These funded pages claimed that Brigadier Hassan al-Zadma had defected from the Libyan army and that his forces were the ones engaged in the confrontations in Qatrun. However, images coming from the ground in Qatrun quickly exposed their lies and clarified the situation within 48 hours. The special units of the Ground Forces General Staff, under the supervision and directives of General Saddam, are waging a war to secure the south from remnants of the Chadian opposition, criminal gangs, and smuggling mafias. Terrifying scenes of dozens of smuggling trucks, massive warehouses filled with tons of food and supplies, cut from the livelihoods of Libyans in the south to be smuggled across the borders. Dozens of tankers and barrels of fuel prepared for smuggling as well, alongside a fuel station deep in the desert, used by human traffickers to refuel during their shuttle smuggling trips from Africa to Europe through Libya. Prisons and facilities operated by human traffickers, where dozens of illegal migrants are held captive, and more dangerous than that, tunnels and underground chambers containing hundreds of crates and millions of narcotic pills and substances prepared for export and distribution within Libya. For those asking where the Libyan army's money goes, here the picture speaks for itself. An expansive desert that requires regional cooperation to secure, yet General Saddam takes it upon himself to wage this battle. A battle that has not and will not stop, against smugglers who recognize no borders, and against states working to sow chaos and export it to neighboring countries in the region by using Libyan territory. Meanwhile, in Tripoli, armed groups protect the Sika Road, which spans no more than 3 to 4 kilometers, while the expenses of its interior ministry exceeded 3 billion Libyan dinars in the first quarter alone. That's not all. The Qatrun operation was not a military show of force, nor a training field for the members of the Ground Forces General Staff. Here are scenes of military sites and illegal settlements established by the Nigerian opposition along the Libyan border, four-wheel drive vehicles, heavy and medium weaponry, crates of ammunition, hundreds of fighters accompanied by prominent Nigerian leaders, governing an opposition-run emirate of smugglers and mercenaries on Libyan soil. The scenario of al-Aranib with the Chadian opposition is repeating itself in Qatrun with the Nigerian opposition. Despite that, Many were displeased with the swift achievements in securing the country's borders and safeguarding its security under the supervision of the rising general. But a resounding slap would come their way, delivered by the Chadian press, revealing names and numbers. Results of the border war. More than 25 members of the Nigerian opposition were killed, including 8 prominent leaders. In addition, contact was lost with other leaders, and their fate remains unknown. Dozens of fighters were arrested, and bases and camps belonging to the Nigerian opposition were destroyed. More than 22 weapon-equipped vehicles were reduced to scrap on the soil of Qatrun. The project to establish security and stability in the south, led by General Saddam Haftar, did not stop at striking drug traffickers' hideouts, smugglers, mercenary bases, and cross-border opposition groups. After the conclusion of the field operation, the Ground Forces Command launched extensive sweep operations to pursue the remnants of gangs and mercenaries inside Qatrun and across the entire southern region. These operations led to the arrest of Mahmoud Saleh, a senior leader within the Nigerian opposition, through a special security operation carried out by units of the Ground Forces Command at dawn on February 22nd. So who is Saleh? The man whose arrest was covered by numerous newspapers and TV channels. A dangerous criminal and a key broker for West African mercenaries, he is the leader of the so-called National Liberation Front and one of the most prominent arms dealers and smugglers operating in the border triangle between Libya, Niger, and Sudan. He leads a military opposition front against the new regime in Niamey, and his militias are accused of recruiting mercenaries across Africa and being responsible for the sabotage of the oil pipeline between Niger and Benin. His group also holds significant influence in wide-ranging areas stretching from northern Niger and southern Libya to Lake Chad and all the way to the Sudanese border. This senior figure, now behind bars under the Ground Forces Command, possesses valuable intelligence about a network of militias and their ties to terrorist movements in Africa, as well as smuggling routes and the arms and drug trade in the region. What took place in Qatrun over the course of a few days was not just a routine security campaign. It was a real-world test and a different kind of challenge that demonstrated the capability and readiness of the ground forces to assert the state's sovereignty over every inch of its territory. The success of the operation was not only in dismantling militias, arresting their leaders, striking gang hideouts, and seizing their weapons, but also in delivering a message written with the blood of martyrs on the battlefield, demonstrating the General Command's ability to secure its south, protect its borders, and uphold its own stability, as well as the security and stability of its neighboring countries. What comes after Qatrun will not be like what came before it. The project to strengthen security and assert the authority and sovereignty of the Libyan state will continue until the very last vulnerable border point that threatens the safety of the Libyan citizen is sealed. The team in Belarus. Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar and his son Saddam set foot in Belarus in a surprise visit shrouded in questions about its purpose and timing, coinciding with critical international developments in Minsk. Accompanied by the Commander-in-Chief, Field Marshal Haftar meets with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, and the two discuss prospects for strategic cooperation. From the deserts of Qatrun to the snow of Belarus, an unexpected event that came just days later. The Libyan delegation meets with Major General Viktor Krenin, the Belarusian Minister of Defense. Hundreds of fighters from the Special Forces Battalion, Sayeka 36, under the Ground Forces Command, pose for a group photo with the Chief of Staff, General Saddam Haftar, at the center, after delivering a grand military parade that showcased their skill and combat proficiency following their completion of advanced training and combat courses in the Republic of Belarus. This scene, appearing for the first time in Libya's modern history, from the Belarusian capital Minsk, reflects the exceptional level of professionalism and elite training attained by units of the ground forces. A new strategic step in military doctrine reveals a part of General Saddam's vision in leading the core of the Libyan army, transforming it from a traditional force into an advanced military power through specialized training in a completely different environment. This shift makes the ground forces command more agile and adaptable to various threats under diverse field conditions, a development that highlights the type, scale, and level of preparation and readiness that the ground forces command has achieved, both on the battlefield and in the realm of diplomatic relations. Since the rise of the emerging general to the leadership of the ground forces command, the balance has shifted. The ground forces have transformed into a formidable striking force. Their missions have expanded, and their professionalism has risen to unprecedented levels, becoming more precise in identifying targets and more capable in overcoming challenges, no matter how complex. In a short span of time, the ground forces have engaged in multiple battles and carried out specialized military operations stretching from the heart of the cities to the depths of the barren desert, from the edges of rugged mountains to the open borders, where the harsh terrain dictates its own difficult rules. Despite the complexity of the missions and the challenging landscape, the ground forces have consistently proven to be a decisive force in recalibrating and securing the south, redrawing time and again the map of Libyan sovereignty with firm hands and unshakable will, driven by a tireless man behind their preparation. General Saddam Haftar, the desert general, who reorganized the ranks of the ground forces and then led them toward rewriting the equation of border control with an unconventional approach. He crafted the plans, gave the orders, and oversaw the course of the war on the ground. He launched successive strikes and decisive operations marked by pinpoint accuracy and swift execution, eliminating the head of the snake and striking at the enemy's den before targeting its remnants and relentlessly pursuing what remained. He continues to draw the borders of national sovereignty and stability, reviving the legend of the desert fox, Rommel. What you don't know about Saddam, and what the media wanted you to believe, the media chose to distort the man's image and blind you from the truth. The young general made his presence known, and, in just a few days, personally oversaw events and festivals, sharing in the joy of the people. On the coastal road in the Sabri area during the Hala Benghazi festival, inspecting the festival's organization and its accomplishments. He also sponsored and oversaw the nation's Guardians and Heroes Quran memorization competition, honoring the winners with valuable prizes, including a pilgrimage to the Holy Kaaba and financial rewards, in appreciation of the ground forces personnel's efforts in memorizing the Holy Quran, offering them moral support and encouraging them to serve the nation through both their achievements and their values, while instilling strong faith-based principles in their hearts. The nation's guardian. Competition was soon followed by General Saddam's launch of the Protectors of the Homeland initiative for Quran memorization during the second half of the holy month of Ramadan. In addition to his participation in a communal iftar with soldiers and officers of the armed forces in the city of Tobruk, he also supported a humanitarian iftar in a gesture of compassion toward the families of inmates at the correctional facility in the city of Sirte, by organizing a communal Ramadan iftar for the inmates, their families, and their children. The rising general within the corridors of the military establishment and a strong presence at the political table has presented a different model from traditional war generals. He became the architect of the ground forces and the man who anchored the power of the state in the face of chaos. He combined decisiveness on the battlefield with genuine connection to the people. He stood close to the soldiers on the front lines and was present among civilians at public events, attentive to every detail, from Fomsofasser architecting military strategies to honoring Quran memorizers. He never overlooked the humanitarian side, supporting community initiatives, sponsoring projects that strengthen national unity, and standing by the families of soldiers and those in need. From this day forward, the history of the ground forces cannot be written without mentioning the name of the rising general. The maps of Libyan sovereignty cannot be drawn without recognizing his imprint on the battlefields and among the people of the nation. General Saddam had proven that leadership is not merely about orders and words, but a vision shaped by actions and translated into accomplishments.